In this video, we're taking a look at Azul Queen's Garden. This is the fourth entry in the Azul family, and like in previous ones, you are trying to impress royalty. But I think the real question is, will this impress board gamers? Azul Queen's Gambit is a tile placement game, in which your goal is to get the most victory points in order to impress Queen Maria. You'll be drafting both tiles and garden expansions in order to increase your garden and make it as pretty as possible. On your turn, you'll have one of three possible actions. Either A, acquire and collect more pieces, B, play the pieces you've already acquired, or C, pass. Now, before we actually explain those actions, let's explain the main component of the game. It's these symbols here with the colors. Most of the actions will involve choosing between either the symbol, so for example trees, or the color, dark green. Depending on which one you choose and depending on the action, it will have different results and also affect the scoring at the end of the game. Now let's actually get to those actions, starting with acquire. When you acquire, you may choose either symbol or color. Depending on the drafting pool area, you will gain everything that matches what you said. So for example, can either say birds and get these two, or dark purple to get these two. Either way, take what you are able to get. And if you remove any from the top of the stack, you will take the top tile, moving it down, adding 4 more to the top of the new empty stack. If this ever empties for some reason, you actually flip over this tile and this garden expansion can now be collected. If I said flowers, not only would I get these 2 tiles up here, but I would also get this garden expansion because it also has a printed flower on it. Do keep in mind though, if you ever want to try to collect something and you don't have room in your storage for it, you can't actually name that. Now let's get on to the playing action. In order to play something, you have to pay a cost. The cost is paying a number of tiles or garden expansions equal to the cost of the item you want to play. The cost is whatever the symbol is, and it's equal to its score value, which you can see here. So for example, a tree, notice there's only 1 tree, only costs 1, while this 6 flower arrangement, which has 6 flowers on it, costs 6. Now you can either pay in the same symbol or same color. So going to this bird here, I can either pay 2 dark purples or 2 birds. When playing any of these, it actually counts itself as well. So for example, the tree, which says costs 1, because it counts itself, is technically a free play. But if I want to say play this bird here, I would need to discard another bird or another light purple, putting it in this fun little tower here. By the way, when paying, you cannot A, mix and match. So if I was paying for this butterfly here, let's say, I cannot use 1 butterfly symbol and 1 of the matching color. You either have to go all in on symbol or all in on color. The other thing is you're not allowed to use duplicates. So if I want to play this butterfly, I cannot use this one to pay for it because it's the same symbol. No duplicates are ever allowed in the paying cost. There are a couple other rules I should mention beforehand. 1, when placing either a garden expansion or tile, it has to go on an empty space that fits it. So tiles in these spaces, garden expansions in these slots over here. The other thing is if it ever touches another symbol, be it printed here or a tile, there are some restrictions. A, at least 1 needs to match its color or symbol. So either I could place this here because it matches its color. And even if, let's say, this was here and these don't match, because it matches one of the things, that is fine. The final thing involves the groups it would form. So for example, when you have multiple of the same color, or let's say we had this butterflies over here, so same symbol, you form a group. And if you want to place a tile, you cannot place it either adjacent to itself, so no doubles next to each other, or even if, let's say we add another tile over here, next to it here where it's in the group with a double. No matter what, doubles can't be in the same grouping. Pretty much you want to avoid trying to have 2 of the same things together or near each other at all times. The final thing I want to mention isn't as much a restriction but a reward. If at any time you are able to surround any of these features here, they're going to give a certain number of these wild tokens. You may have been wondering what these were. You get a few at the beginning, but anytime you surround these, you're going to get some as well. And going back earlier, let's say I had these 2, not enough to play either of these butterfly tiles. You can use wild to replace some of the costs in order to help you get some of the more expensive or challenging tiles, or maybe you just can't find the right tiles in order to pay the cost. The final action is pass. If you are unable to take any tiles, build anything, or just don't want to, you will pass. Passing means pretty much you are out of the round. Now, if you are the first to pass, you will get this first player token, which means you get to go first, but you also lose a point for taking it. Keep that in mind. And if your storage happens to be relatively full and you don't like any of the tiles, you can discard them. So let's say I was never going to feel like play the 6 and get rid of it, but the tile will make you lose points equal to its value. So for example, discarding this would cost me 6, this would cost me 3. So you probably don't want to do it unless you really need that room. Once everyone has passed, you're going to be able to have a chance to score some points at the end of the round. Based on where the wheel is positioned here, you're going to score points based on the elements in the notches. So for the very first round, you'll get 1 point for each green tile you have, for each tree, and for each light blue you have, plus an additional point for each pavilion in your garden. As you can see, as the game progresses, they'll have different things scored as well as different values, with the harder to play things giving you more points if they appear in your garden. Once, however, you reach the final round, after this scoring, there is a final scoring where you're going to get the majority of your points. Now, before you actually go through the final scoring, you're going to go back to your other board. First, you're going to look at your storage. For each wild you have left over, you're going to get a victory point. But for each remaining tile or garden extension, you're going to lose points equal to its point value. So in this case, that would be plus 3 points, but also minus 19 points. So you really don't want to try to have any leftovers in that final round. Then you're going to look at how your board scored. Using this fun little chart here, going one at a time, you're going to score colors. Then you will score symbols. So for example, if you have a grouping of 3 or more, so let's actually place a few more things here, this light blue will score equal to the symbols on it. So in this case, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9 points. Now, if you happen to have more light blues, that would be good. If you have a grouping of 6, you get additional points depending on which mode you're playing. This one is 6. On the other side, there's actually different values, so it depends on which side you're playing. Now, after you go through all the colors, which seem to be different values, you're going to go through symbols, which is similar, but it's a little bit easier to calculate score. So for example, this butterfly group is 3 times 3, 9 points. Once you've done all the symbols, all the colors, you will add up all the points and see who is the winner. First thing I want to talk about with the Queen's Garden is what obviously would catch most people's eye, and that's the components and design. They really feel like they want to make this feel like it was a top-notch built game. These tiles are fantastic. There are a lot of pretty colors here. The tower is, I mean, they didn't need to have this whole discard pile thing, but they do. Bag, very cute and nice. So you will not feel that you have a poorly made game hitting the table. I will say that maybe some of the colors are weird, white on yellow, 2 different purples. I mean, maybe they could have done a pink or something, but either way, when you see them all laid out on the board and you finally have your groups, it is still very pretty. The other thing is some of the mechanics I want to talk about, I guess drafting, you could call it, the picking of the tiles. I really enjoyed because it's not simply just I take the one tile I need. There is some very interesting decisions in how you name color versus symbol. For example, I really want this dark purple here, but if I name light green, I get 3 more tiles, which could be really useful for paying for those higher end tiles, which are actually very annoying to play. In fact, let me actually get to the thing that really bugged me at this game is playing tiles. The rules have all these little stipulations in which it costs its value, but it counts itself in that. So really it's more -1 whatever it costs or whatever its point value is. And you can never use any kind of duplicates. So remember to keep that in mind when paying the things. It always seemed to trip someone up at the table. I mean, yes, I usually had at least, I think every game I had at least one person who was new to it that I played. So that wasn't ideal, so to speak, but even those who had a game under their belt still had to take some time and pause and think, wait, if I take that, no, I can't pay for that because of that symbol. This became really, egregious is not the right word, but a pain with the 6 cost ones. I saw someone go, I'll choose 6. All 5 colors are available in the pool. Or not all 5. 5 of the 6 colors are available in the pool. All I need to do is find that last one and I'm golden. They never did. which meant they were really hurt for points near the end because they tried to hold on to them because they didn't give them up near the end, and they just could never play it. And even when they did, because it took up so much space in their storage, it just felt like they didn't have nearly as much wiggle room as the rest. And so oftentimes the higher cost ones were mostly just used to pay for lower ones. In fact, I don't think there was a game where usually whoever won didn't have a large grouping of trees. It seemed to be the strategy was always get the small ones because they're just so much easier to play. Now you may say, what about those wilds? Well, it's a catch-22. To surround the things, you need a lot of tiles. To play a lot of tiles of the bigger ones, it's very hard because you need to get the cost to play them. So usually you're waiting for that final tile you need in order to play and get the wild to begin with. The cheap ones, on the other hand, tend to give you a lot of wilds, but you're not nearly as hungry for them because the smaller ones are cheaper. Now, this could have been a lot easier, I think, with the doubles if it was just either, look, spend 3 light greens or 3 butterfly symbols. But you also have to worry about doubles. So you might have technically the number of tiles, but because one of them is a double in there, you're not allowed to pay for it that way, which just caused a lot of annoyance and confusion. And sometimes someone would be like, they play it, and then someone would be like, hey, wait a minute, didn't you have 2 butterflies? And they're like, yeah, oh God, I got to go back and redo the whole thing. So I just found out that the paying for things just started to be really slowed down the flow of the game in not a fun, feeling like you're doing clever strategy way, but more of just like filing taxes. But if you get through all that, the actual scoring at the end, be it both the rounds and end of the game, I actually really enjoyed. The end of round scoring, it didn't do too much, but it felt good. Like, oh, you know what? I got those 2 light blues, so I get an extra 2 points. But if you missed it, it didn't feel like you were out of the game. So I really enjoyed how that does like just the right amount of rewards to make you proud of what you've built so far without making you feel like the short-term strategy outweighs the long. I think that was balanced well. And then the final game scoring, it's just great to be like, all right, this scored me 3. Oh, but it's also part of the butterfly group, so it scores me another. Again, the tiles being able to have multiple uses in essence at end game scoring was really rewarding and fun to fill out that puzzle. I just wish that the actual playing the pieces for this puzzle wasn't its own complicated issue. Crits and misses for Azul, Queen's Garden. Crits. I think they did a great job in making this game feel top-notch. All the components feel fantastic. They easily could have gone with much more simpler tokens, but everything just feels beautiful and looks very pretty. It obviously is made to not only pop out for the eyes of the players, it feels like this game was also designed to impress the queen, not just the garden you're trying to build. Scoring throughout the game is very rewarding, whether it's the end of round making you feel good for doing a short-term run on whatever's scoring that round, or at the end of the game when you feel fantastic how, depending on how you laid out your tiles and groups, that multiple tiles will score for different groups, giving you a whole bunch of points. It's really fun to see your points skyrocket when you thought you were at maybe a mile 20 or 30 and then all of a sudden shoot up past 80. Misses. The system designed to pay and place tiles was honestly a bit annoying and complicated. You had to pay a cost equal to its value, but it counts itself. You can't have duplicates. You can't mix and match. And then when you place it, there's all these other rules. It felt like the game got slowed down a bit as players were trying to do their own accounting to make sure they had what was required in order to play specific tiles. So, full disclosure, I have played the original Azul, but I haven't played the other 2, so I can't compare too much against those. That said, the original Azul to me, what I recall, I haven't played it in a while, was it was a game that was easy for me to get into and it was fun and had those tiles and it was interesting how to pick things. And this has elements of that, I think. I mean, the tiles are very obvious, but the idea of designing and picking, but this time you can choose colors and symbols. I feel the idea behind Queen's Garden was we wanted to make a more complex Azul. And in some ways they did. Unfortunately, I think the way I can only assume for balancing reasons, how to use the costs and stuff, made it I don't want to say too thinky is the right word, because I do like complex games and definitely games that have a lot of weird interacting rules. I mean, that's every trading card game. But I just felt like instead of rewarding me for coming up with a weird interaction or doing a risky strategy. It felt more like it was just taxing my mind to make sure I could even continue the game. I don't know. Like I said, I point out the double rules in particular. I hated whenever I got two of the same thing because I'm like, oh, I have to find out what to do with this other one, or I might forget and think I could play something, and I didn't. I feel like either getting rid of that or maybe even just having 4 or 5 colors and symbols instead of 6, because I did notice the 6 ones were very scary. They did not feel like in a game when you take that fun, risky maneuver that has a huge payoff. It felt more like when you did play it wasn't the huge reward. It felt more like, well, thank God that's out of my hair. And more often than not, the 5 and 6s were used more as fodder rather than clever, strong pieces to play on the board. I like a lot of the concepts. I like the pattern building, the puzzle solving, and the scoring feels great. I just wish there was a way to smooth out the rules and so we can actually play this game in what I feel the pace and strategy it deserves. But you let me know if you've had the chance to play this game and where does it rank for you compared to all the other Azul titles? Do you think this is a worthy successor in the Azul family line? Is it designed to be a more complex game and does it do it well? Or does it have some bugs it still needs to iron out? I'd really love to hear from all of you and what your thoughts are down below. And of course, I appreciate that you made this far, and if you could, like and subscribe, and maybe share this with someone if you think they'd be interested in this game. But until then, I'm Will, and this has been a Roll for Crit.